It was the number one home field advantage of any field I played on.
I've been around a long time and been to a lot of places. I don't know in professional sports if there's any place quite like Buffalo.
I really felt like there was a camaraderie between the players and the fans in that stadium.
We're sitting there, our heads are bowed, and somebody came up and said, Frank, you're going to lead the greatest comeback in NFL history.
Just being in the same conversation of having a big play like that in a stadium that's been around a lot longer than I've been alive.
I remember I was at the other end of the field and ran through a bunch of people and knocked a bunch of people over. I think I plowed a bunch of people just to get to the locker room.
Came back out and it felt like it was 2 feet of snow on the ground, and it came out of nowhere. Snow was blowing, hitting you in your face sideways, couldn't maybe see 3 or 4 feet in front of you, and the Colts had white jerseys on.
It'd almost be like walking back to a friend's gravesite, or my dad's gravesite, going back to it, because you got all the memories that are going to come flooding back.
A lot of good memories in the stadium, but looking forward to making new ones as well.
It'll likely be the end of an era Sunday afternoon in Orchard Park. Welcome to Sports Talk Live Plus. I'm Sports Director John Scott, joined as always by someone who's maybe spent more time inside that building than anyone else. That is our very own Vic Carucci here, and we will be looking back and remembering Highmark Stadium throughout the show, including Vic's chat with Sal Mayorana of the Rochester Democrat and Chronicles, someone who's also been there almost as long as Vic.
Yep.
Not going to spend too much time on this week's opponent because it's the Jets, but there are some things we will discuss. Vic, before we get into it, and we'll get into the stadium stuff, but just knowing that the conclusion is likely coming to a place that has been so prominent in your professional life, but that also bleeds into just normal life as well.
And the personal part of it, John, is where it's really hitting me. And I didn't expect this to be something that would start becoming nostalgic or emotional. I mean, we're telling that story, and a lot of those interviews that you just showed, those clips, I certainly conducted along with you. I mean, we've put together a lot of those and listening to those stories and so forth. But what has hit me, and we'll get into the discussion with Sal Mayorana a little later in the show, how much of my life has been spent in that building, in that place, when the administration building served as also the area where the media worked during the week. So it wasn't just on game day, it was between games, the hours spent there. And when my daughters were little and, going to bed before I could get home at night because it was a long day and a long night spent in that building. And, the media that covered the team or the players or the coaches, it all dawned on us. We spent a lot more time with each other than we did with our own families.
Yeah, it is crazy. I have a lot of memories, and I've only been here since 2014. So I know many of you, it's going to be a really fun, sentimental, nostalgic type of a week. But first, we got to get into the injury report because, unfortunately, in the present time, that is the longest thing that you can see. And at the top of the list, Vic, is Josh Allen. 2 straight days this week not participating with that foot injury as well. Sean McDermott had already ruled out Terrell Bernard on Monday because of the calf injury. We don't know the extent of things beyond that. Joey Bosa, AJ Epinesa, Daquan Jones, Jordan Poyer, they're all not practicing. Again, you got a bunch of guys who are limited there, including both of the tight ends. When you look at this, Vic, how much do you think is caution because it's week 18, there's not as much on the line, or how much do you think is like, my goodness, this team is still swimming upstream with health?
I think that last part is probably, it applies, but I don't think dramatically. I think this speaks a lot more to what kind of game you have and sort of setting the stage for what you're going to see or not see in the way of starters playing against the Jets. And it starts right at the top. What are they going to do with Josh Allen? I know there is this starting streak that, they want to keep alive, but frankly, really doesn't matter that much that you want to put him out there for, and it's bogus. It's already bogus because he's done the one snap and step away thing, and I'm not sure. And does it matter that much to him? If it does, I can understand what Sean McDermott's thinking. I don't know if there's some bonus attached to that there's a financial consideration. Maybe that's could be the thing that you're missing on this, but. Why even risk him walking onto the field and stepping back to hand off or do anything when the most important thing is procuring health for the postseason?
100%. Sean McDermott, non-committal when we heard from him yesterday. whether or not the starters were going to play. He said there's a bunch of different factors in here. There's guys who have incentives in the contract. There are guys like James Cook looking to secure the rushing title for the first time in his career. But when it comes to Allen, number one thing is for him to be as healthy as possible. I think that foot's going to be there and dealing with it in some capacity, however long this playoff run potentially goes. But if you can give him as much rest, and again, not even practicing, they're not super heavy and intense practices. Wednesday was a walkthrough. So that's why, to me, not even seeing him out there in like a DNP and then a limited and then maybe a full go in a light Friday practice, to me, that is tipping the hand of Sean McDermott that, hey, Allen is not going to play on Sunday.
I feel like that's where it's going to go, and I think there are any number of fans of this football team who are cheering that thought and say, yes, Sean, please, keep him out or protect him from himself, and that could also be part of the equation. But the fact that he wouldn't be taking a single snap, the fact that this is all Mitch Trubisky's practices, let that guy be the guy to take it from game one. And I'm not suggesting, get Mitch hurt. No, you need two healthy quarterbacks. The fact that they don't have another guy on the roster at the position is also interesting. But that aside, just keep Allen away from anything that can cause harm.
100%. You can still see him in the cool red helmet, just on the sideline and maybe in warm-ups. It's not
Pose
often
for pictures.
It's not often you enter the final week of the regular season with so much up in the air regarding seeding. Only one playoff spot is still unknown. That's the winner of the AFC North. The other 6 teams locked in. So you could see it right here the way it is currently stacked. Broncos, Patriots, and the Jags still fighting for that number 1 seed, with the Broncos the front runner there. As we said, AFC North is between the Steelers and Ravens, who happen to play each other on Sunday Night Football. The 3 wildcard teams, all 11-5 right now. Texans, Chargers, then the Bills. So the Bills, if all of them wind up with the same record, they would be in the 7 seed right there. Vic, as you look at this right now, what do you think is a premium for teams maybe beyond the Broncos and the Patriots?
Well, I mean, I think that you look at Jacksonville and first-year head coach Liam Cohen, but good at what he's been doing. He's certainly done wonders with Trevor Lawrence. It seems like he's gotten the best out of him. Whoever fills that 4th spot, as I say, Steelers or Ravens, it feels like the Steelers are the easiest out on that entire list. I think everything else, I think Jacksonville would be a challenge. We know the challenges at the top end. And then you look at this Chargers team, and, could they be a team that with already going to be sitting their starters? They're going to be sitting the starting quarterback. They're going to sit most of their starters, Justin Herbert and most of the starters. So I believe Jim Harbaugh is taking the right approach with them, but does that put them in a lower seed possibly than the Bills? Do the Texans end up falling? And then that creates the interesting scenario, of course, if things broke right and Buffalo is still going, could they end up with a home championship game?
Right, and as we take a look at the schedule for these teams in the AFC playoff hunt here, Texans and Jags are playing in the 1 o'clock window. So if the Texans decide to win or lose, not decide, but if they win or lose, you'll know that from a Bills standpoint.
Right.
So then it's like, can we get to the 5? If the Texans don't win that football game, the answer to that is no. If the Texans win, then the Bills cannot get up there.
Yeah.
You said the Chargers are already sitting everyone, and the Broncos need to win to get the 1 seed. So just assume Denver's going to do that. So that's where the Bills could go into 425 and make some of these decisions with who's going to play and who's not going to play based upon what maybe they see Houston does in the 1 o'clock window. And as you said, Ravens Steelers here, 8:20 Sunday Night Football on WGRZ Channel 2. You'll get to see that. A very interesting game, but probably a game that includes the 2 teams that everybody in the AFC would like to see in the postseason as well. All right, Not a whole lot to say about the 3-13 Jets. They cannot, though, be the number 1 overall pick, but a loss would help their cause to get to potentially the number 2 overall pick, and maybe that's why Brady Cook is going to be their starting quarterback and not a guy named Tyrod Taylor. These are the stats here, not overly impressive, about 150 yards or so per game. In 4 games, 3 of those are starts. 1 touchdown, 7 interceptions. He's been sacked 18 times, including games of 8 sacks and 6 sacks. Maybe regardless of who's on the field for the Bills, especially on that defense, is Brady Cook someone that should be able to do anything against him?
It doesn't feel that way against backups even. And interesting, my colleague on SiriusXM NFL radio, my regular colleague, Dan Leberfeld, he's an editor-publisher of a publication called Jets Confidential. And at a press conference earlier in the week, he asked Aaron Glenn, the Jets coach, why start Brady Cook in this game versus Tyrod Taylor, who is healthy to start. And Glenn's answer was because Brady Cook gives us our best chance to win. Yes. And
win what? The number 2 overall pick.
Exactly. Smirking, laughing. And maybe that is what he meant in a serious way. Gives us our best chance to win beyond the 2025 or even the 26 season because they'd have a shot at having the 2nd overall pick of the draft.
Yeah, this is not this makes our team better type of move. And if you look at the Jets offense overall, 28th in total yards and points per game, dead last in that passing category. They are 7th in the NFL in rushing. We know Breece Hall is good, over 1,000 yards rushing once again. Also that dual threat, 350 yards receiving. They got no Garrett Wilson. He's injured. Mason Taylor, their 2nd leading receiver at tight end. He is injured as well, probably not going to play. Adonai Mitchell came over in the Sauce Gardner trade. He can pop a little bit here, but there's nothing that should really instill any fear on the Jets offense.
It's a pathetically sad, bad, awful, atrocious football team. If this were a soccer league, you'd talk about regulation, right? You'd move them out of the regular listing of top teams because I say top teams, legitimate teams. They're not that. And they've been bad for so long. And once again, I'll mention my partner on the radio there, Dan Leberfeld, often he'll ask me the question, what's it like to cover a playoff team?
Yeah, well, we were asking that question for 17 years, Vic, so I think we can relate a little bit. A bad Jets offense, not really anything new. Bad Jets defense is that group lower 3rd in the league in just about everything, 30th in points allowed per game. Will McDonald leads the team in sacks with 8. He's on injured reserve. They got a guy that you've probably never heard of, but he's 6th in the NFL in tackles. They have some other guys, but Vic, this is astounding. Yeah. They literally have not had an interception as a defense, even with Sauce Gardner on the team, the entire season.
That's insane. And that really, even I don't care who you're facing at quarterback, there's always the chance. And oh yes, their head coach is Aaron Glenn, a renowned defensive-oriented coach. You're telling me he couldn't scheme up one game where they could get a pick?
Dumb luck gets you interceptions in the NFL. I guess the Jets are just dumb. So that's a brief look at the game itself, because really it's all about the stadium. Vic chatting with one of the most tenured writers to cover this team, Sal Mayorana from the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle. Their trip down memory lane next here on Sports Talk Live Plus. Welcome back here to Sports Talk Live Plus. Sunday will be special. Likely the final game to be played inside the current Highmark Stadium. Vic has over 40 years inside that press box. Sal Mayorana not too far behind. And you two, talk about a trip down memory lane. Yeah. That's a lot of years of memories to sift through. Yeah,
when I asked him if he'd be willing to sit down with me to have this chat, he said, sure. And how much time we got? I said, really not a lot, because it has to fit into a show, but we could have gone on easily for hours. We tried to pack it into minutes. We did not cover all the decades. We just covered what kind of struck us as the interesting highlights in our mind. You and I have lived so many memories in that place. What stands out to you as maybe, and I know it's hard to pick one, but really, what's at the top of your list?
Yeah, look, Vic, as that helmet behind me would indicate, I actually attended games when they wore that helmet. They only wore that helmet 1 year in that stadium, 1973, and I was there for the very first game ever played, the preseason game against the Washington Redskins at that time. So I'm going to see the very first game and what we think is going to be the very last game Sunday against the Jets. So it's been quite a span of 53 years for me at that stadium. I don't think a whole lot of people can say they were at the first and the last game. So that makes me a little bit unique. But as far as memories, Vic, there's so many, and I'm sure we're going to get into a few. But that very first night, I mean, I was 10 years old, and I'll never forget going in there. I had gone to games at the Rock Pile, which was an absolute disgrace. And to walk into that new stadium that August night, with my dad and see it, just the magnificence of the place was they had a scoreboard that had replays, Vic. I mean, unheard of at the time. So yeah, it was really cool. Well, that's a great memory for me. And I'm sure we're going to get through a lot more just of the games that you and I have covered together.
Like you said, the obvious games, the comeback game against Houston, the 51-3 championship game. I got to throw this one at you because I want your take on it. Monday Night Football, Bills Rams, Frank Reich at quarterback. Take the rest of the story.
Yep. I was still working for the DNC, but it wasn't on the beat full time. I joined the beat the next year, the first Super Bowl year, but I was there for the game as a sidebar guy. And yeah, Jim Kelly had gotten hurt a few weeks earlier, the year of the bickering Bills. He very clearly blamed Howard Ballard for that. So Frank Reich was playing in the game, and they make this great rally. Frank Reich and Andre Reed hooking up with the winning touchdown on Monday Night Football. It began a period for Frank where he was like Mr. Backup quarterback.
And the other thing that stood out about that game, and I'm pretty sure you'll recall this, the pounding of feet and so forth of the deck, what is it, the 300 section above the press box, right? And at the time, the press box was in that 50-yard line, that middle area.
Yeah, the good old days.
So it's the vibration cracked a pane of glass. And
oh yeah,
there were right, and there was suspicion, and I know there was some conversations with the Erie County sheriffs and all the security of what this might be. Larry jokingly said it was probably an irate reader fan taking a pop at him, and he was, he meant that very tongue in cheek, but maybe not. I don't know. But I'm next to him, and I started to like slide my seat a little further, but the glass all came. It was bizarre. And I kept a big chunk of this, because the glass had to be about that thick, and used it as a paperweight. So for a lot of years, I don't know what happened to it, but it felt like that moment, Frank, and the glass breaking, there was something, maybe magical's overstating it, but there was something, otherworldly going on there.
Yeah. I remember the game that stands out to me, Vic, in that period when you felt like the Bills were going to become the Bills that they became, was the Fred Smerlis blocked field goal game against the Jets that clinched the AFC East the year before. I was there in the press box for that game too, as a sidebar guy. And that was, the fans rushing the field, tearing the goalpost. That was just unbelievable. That was a moment that I'll never forget. And then going back as a fan, I was there in 1980, the day they beat the Dolphins to end the 20-game losing streaks. I was in the crowd that year in the end zone, partying and going crazy. But those were two games from the 80s that will never leave my memory. And I do recall that glass breaking in that game against the Rams. So that's just the 80s, Vic. We could go on for hours about the games we saw in the 90s, and then even after that.
For fans, that's, I think, as large a part of this experience as any. The family-like atmospheres that are created among season ticket holders, right, in the same section. That's a neighborhood. That's not just places where, blue seats are. That's a neighborhood. And people start to know each other well and get into each other's lives. And I've heard, I'm sure you have too, any number of stories. Christmas gifts were exchanged or are exchanged among fans who've gotten to know each other going to Bills games.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. If you get season tickets for years and years, a lot of other people have season tickets right next to you. So you get to know these people. I never had that. We never had season tickets. I was always in a different spot in the stadium whenever I would go as a fan. But yeah, absolutely. I know there's generations, Vic. We've gone through 3 or 4 generations of people at that stage. When you think about, at my age, at 10, my grandfather wasn't a football fan, but if he was, he would have gone to the stadium. My father, me, now my children, we're talking 3, 4 generations have lived in that place, made that place their home for so long. And I know I'm going to miss it. Vic, I remember when the Odd closed its doors for the final time in 1996. And I had gone to so many events at that place as a fan, concerts, Sabres games, Braves games. Then I worked there for a while. I'm not going to say I had a tear in my eye, but it was emotional. The last time I walked out of the I covered, in fact, it was a Buffalo Bandits game, was the last event that I covered there. They played Rochester. And I remember that being emotional, but this is way different. I've spent most of my life at what I'll still call Rich Stadium. So when we leave that place Sunday, it will be like you're saying goodbye to an old friend. And for me, with the history I have, again, first game, last game, it's going to be meaningful when I leave the place for the final time.
Yeah. Goodbye to an old friend, and so well put by Sal. Great stuff from him. So we all have our memories there, John. What about you?
Yeah, I've only been here since 2014, so my top three are the snow game, which Lorenzo Alexander noted there, wild. Noon, it's clear, 12:30, you can't see past midfield from the press box. Taron Johnson's pick six against the Ravens with only 6,700 people in there. And I spoke with Reed Ferguson this week, and he said it sounded like there was 75,000 people in that building as well. And the other one was Nyheim Hines' kick return coming off of the Damar Hamlin incident in Cincinnati. Another one of the top moments, guys I spoke with this week on the team who were there say it was just an out-of-body, literally different experience.
And you know what I appreciate watching you, and we've known each other, of course, since the time you arrived, but seeing you now, get married, now you're a young dad, and same kind of thing. You spend a lot of time there. You spend more time there now than I do, and you juggle that with your family. So I understand that too.
It is going to be, but it has been cool living so close and working there to see the new stadium come up, and everyone will now start to make new memories across the street. Just a few more minutes here on Sports Talk Live Plus. Black Monday is nearing here in the NFL for head coaches. Whose seat is the hottest? Vic and I discuss after the break. Welcome back here to Sports Talk Live Plus. We're going to wrap things up quickly here. Last week of the regular season, maybe the last chance for some coaches to try to save some jobs. Who's at the top of the hot seat list?
I would have to say Kevin Stefanski, Mike Tomlin, of course, who we're looking at now, definitely, and the outcome of the Raven game Sunday night will have a lot to do with that. I think Todd Bowles in Tampa could be in trouble. I think this guy, Kevin Stefanski, could be in trouble. I think Pete Carroll, for sure. That we're looking at Todd Bowles there. Pete Carroll with the Raiders could be a one and done. I think Zach Taylor from the Bengals could be done. Mike McDaniel from the Dolphins could have a problem. We're looking at Zach Taylor right there. And then, of course, Giants, Titans have interim coaches. So we could see upwards of 8 or so, and that's about the average, 7 or 8 per year. There's old Pete Carroll, who didn't have a chance with that roster.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Bills, though, sorry, they're going to keep Sean McDermott. They're heading to the postseason, but we got to say goodbye to Highmark Stadium as we say goodbye to you. We'll see you next week.